We're going to look at bucket three now. In bucket three, we're talking about how teachers should be able to see their students' work and respond to it. This is most important. We need teachers to constantly be able to see and react to the work that kids are doing live and in the moment. We're going to look at a lot of options for how to do that. So we're going to start with the options that are built into Nearpod. So in Nearpod, we have an open-ended question. This is our teacher view of the open-ended question. A couple things to point out here. We have a timer that was built in. We have multimedia. In this case, I just put the problem in. So a screenshot of the problem, put in as multimedia, and student view. I could make recording an option. In this case, it's not available. And then student responses are going here. So open-ended question. Next, we're going to look at a quiz. So in this quiz, I changed the multimedia option. So I have a voiceover of the question.
What is the cost of one bag of party favors?
I can always have a voiceover of the question. I could have a picture of the question, or I can have a video asking the question, any of those multimedia options. And again, I'll see student responses. As student responses come in, student can listen to the voiceover and answer the question. And teacher will see that response come in real time and can share out the class responses. So open-ended question, quiz, collaborate board. On my collaborate board, all students will see all other students' responses, but without the name. So if the student responds here, and posts, students will not see the names. Teacher will see the name as they come up, and teacher has the option to review those posts before they are approved and posted on the board. So our open-ended question and our quiz, teacher is seeing that information and can push it out to students to share. As they choose collaborate board, we're all seeing the information at the same time, and teacher has access to the names, student does not. So the open-ended question, the quiz, and the collaborate board are our basic built-in Nearpod tools. We're not going to look at time to climb, matching pairs, and fill in the blank, but a note on each of those. All three provide some level of data. The teacher can see in real time if kids are getting the questions right or wrong, but they don't tell us much more than that. So they don't show us the actual student work. So for example, in matching pairs, we don't see the mistake that students made if they matched the wrong pair. We just see that they got it right or they got it wrong. With time to climb, same thing. We just see them moving up the mountain, but it's a gamified way for them to take a quiz and can be fun to include. But think about the first three on this list as being ways to really collect student data. The next three, some data collection options, but also a more fun way to engage kids with the task. And finally, we're going to look at Draw It. Draw It has the most functionalities in some ways because Draw It is the only one of these tools where you're seeing their work in real time as opposed to after they press submit. So in this case, I included a video, a screencast, as my embedded multimedia. And this screencast is just to show students how to use the text box. It takes a little bit of an investment by teachers to teach kids how to use the text box, but grades 3 and up, I would highly recommend teaching them this technique, because once we do that, I can now see student work live as it's happening. Whereas even with an open-ended question, I can't see student work until they submit. So if I'm asking a question of 2 or 3 or 4 sentences or more, I would much rather see half a sentence in, status of the class, how students are doing overall, individual students where I can narrate, give feedback, support them or possibly even bring the class back together and recalibrate based on what I'm seeing. So I'd recommend draw it with text boxes as a better way for longer open-ended questions. The next mode of seeing student work in real time is embedding a self-paced Nearpod. So this is a self-paced Nearpod. As a teacher, I'm going to stay on this screen. When I move off of this screen, kids will no longer have access to the self-paced Nearpod. As a student, they're going to see this self-paced Nearpod and have an opportunity to sign into it. When they sign into it, I'm going to have a second tab open, and that second tab is going to be showing me student work as we go. So I keep this one open, I keep this slide up. I don't move on from this slide because as soon as I do, it will move the student on from that slide. But I have a second tab that is viewing progress in the self-paced Nearpod, and I can see students. The value of using the self-paced Nearpod option is if I have 3 or 4 or 5 questions and I want students to be able to work at their own pace, think independent practice, I can do that and I can still have insight into exactly what each student is producing, and I can still look at it in a dashboard mode. The value of embedding it into the Nearpod is that students don't have to go anywhere else. They don't have to go back to their Schoology page in the moment to open independent practice. And I'm just staying on this page. As soon as I move on from this page, it will move on the student work as well, and they will be taken out of their self-paced Nearpod. The data from that work will always be available in reports under the self-paced Nearpod report. Two other options with Nearpod that I want to mention. There's sound recording and open-ended questions. You can always add the option for students to record. Even in a synchronous lesson, you can have students record. As soon as they record and submit, the play button will pop up in your dashboard and you can just mute yourself as a teacher and listen to their response. So you could use an open-ended question that's entirely verbal. You could have multimedia as part of the question with you asking the question as a teacher verbally and students responding verbally. And you can listen to those verbal responses in real time as they come in, just like you could in a classroom if you walked around the room and checked in with individual kids and conferred asking verbal questions. That's essentially what you can accomplish using that open-ended question with the sound recording option. With Flipgrid, same thing, but via video, so you can incorporate a Flipgrid right inside the Nearpod add-on or the Nearpod app and ask students to record themselves giving a response to your question, and you'll see their videos pop up in real time as they record themselves. We're going to look at some of the G Suite tools that you can incorporate. These happen to be embedded in my Nearpod. They don't have to be. They obviously could be in the Schoology LMS. You could send students back to Schoology to do this, but they can be used either way. So this is a Google form that is embedded into my Nearpod. A couple reasons I would do this. Google Form has a few functionalities that the Nearpod quiz itself does not have. One is if I want the responses to be varied in terms of the mode of response. So I can have multiple choice like I can have with quiz, but I can also have a open-ended question built into the same quiz or set of questions. I can also have a scale, 5-point scale, things like that built in. The second thing that you can do is with multiple choice, if you want your response options to be pictures, you can have 4 pictures, A, B, C, and D to choose from, and students can choose the correct picture, diagram, equation. So there's some value in using Google Forms as your quiz instead of the Nearpod quiz. And third, if you set your form up under settings as a quiz, the default is not a quiz, but if you make it a quiz, then we can go to each problem and you'll have an option here to mark the correct answers and then create feedback. So when students get their answer wrong in real time, they will get automatic feedback. So in terms of differentiating, students are now getting feedback in real time from you as they work on this quiz in a much more robust way than you can with the Nearpod quiz, where it's just going to tell them right or wrong. And it can be video feedback. You can make a screencast showing them how to do the problem correctly that only appears for kids who submit a wrong answer. It could be audio feedback that you record, or it could be written feedback. So the Google form has a lot of options there. And again, you can embed it in Nearpod, or they can go back to Schoology to complete the Google form. And in both cases, you're going to be able to see all of their responses on the back end in real time. If you open the spreadsheet, they will populate as students complete each question.